jacked in here. Get started here in just a moment. Beautiful. All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is the third edition of the Magik of Science, and today I want to talk about artificial intelligence.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, Joshua?
Good. You think?
What was that?
Oh, just us? What's up?
Yeah, just us so far. Chilling, man. I invited a couple people. We'll see who turns up. So today, the topic of conversation is AI, neural networks, automations, and technologies of that nature.
Can you say that again real quick, please?
Yeah, it's artificial intelligence, neural networks, and like automation and technologies of that nature.
Okay, bro. Super fascinating conversation so far today. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of like highly stimulated for conversations, and I'm going to do my best to dial it down, but also dial up the authenticity as best I can, and not try to be emotional about things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Looks like we got a listener. Hey, Steve, how you doing? Anyways, so I'm just going to start off real simple. I'm going to start off by reading a definition, so that way we can kind of start from Webster's perspective. So according to Webster, artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science dealing with simulations or intelligent behaviors in computers. So there are lots of applications currently for this kind of line of thinking. We have on like the corporate sector, there's artificial intelligence used to collect data, right? Then there's artificial intelligence used to simulate things like conversation even. I was reading that there are definitely, like, we've developed our conversational text-based AI to a point where it's indistinguishable from human beings. There are these quote-unquote deepfake technologies that everyone's talking about. And I'm not so sure about the applications of these, because so far they seem to be easy to catch, right? Like using artificial intelligence, we're able to catch things like face simulators pretty easily. But it begs the question: at what point will that no longer be a thing? Like, at what point will we have put so much effort into artificial intelligence that we can strap anyone's face on and pretend to be them? That's a pretty wild thought. What do you think about that, Joshua?
You handed me the mic as soon as I left this app.
No problem.
I was gonna send you a picture of something cool that on Telegram. So I think if you're doing the streaming, caveat real quick, but if you're doing the streaming on the thing, then you can pull up the Telegram thing.
I could.
Yeah, it's not on this device, right? I'm sorry. It's not on this device, damn it. But anyways, what I was going to show you is actually I did some AI art.
Oh.
And what I got out of that was, yeah, I can just use this other device here. Oh.
So what program did you use? Which AI?
Yeah, it's a PhotoLeap.
PhotoLeap. Yeah, that's a very common use for artists these days. They're making AIs produce not just one image, but like there's this really cool video style where an AI generates a series of paintings based on their own artwork. I've seen some cool stuff.
Dude, and so this one is just taking words and a genre. Like, you basically explain to it in words, like typing. And then it generates this. And so, like, it's wild, man. Like, dude, it is wild. It's actually really stimulating the right side of the brain for me into that non-linear. And I'm pretty inspired by it, actually. So I'm gonna try to work on some drawing stuff.
I found this article that was actually written by an AI pretty recently this year, and it's very eerie, right? Like, because it says things like, here's a quote: "My brain is boiling with ideas." That's an interesting thing for a robot who later in this article admits that they're incapable of understanding feeling. That seems to be a very emotionally charged statement. So this particular article was kind of like a showcasing that even if AI can't feel, we're starting to get to a point where we can teach them to simulate feelings in a convincing manner, which is almost just as good.
Or almost just as lame. Some would say that.
Guys, let me tell you, I don't want to set you, but I'm really not so good in English. Can I send you my idea in chat?
Definitely. Please do.
Super.
Hey Trey, how's it going?
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and invite Trey to speak. I haven't seen him in a while.
I type paste and what? Just a moment.
No problem.
I have an idea how to solve a problem of shooting.
Which problem?
Shooting. When someone shoot.
Like a, like kind of like terrorism?
Yeah, I think it's a very long description. I'll try to make it part by part, one by one. Let me. I had that idea yesterday and want to share that idea with someone.
Okay. Well, while you're pulling that up, I think I'm gonna keep rolling into this conversation a little bit because there were a couple topics that I wanted to get to a little bit today.
Okay, I'll try to make it shorter.
We'll post it up in chat. We'll see what you got. For sure. I'd love to read what you have. So we were kind of talking about speech recognition.
Oh, okay.
And another kind of AI that's coming out that pairs really dangerously, I feel, with speech recognition is natural language generation. And what that is like when you're listening to Siri or your GPS system, the speech is getting a lot more human. Let's see. I think we can use the AI to calculate the personal firearm rate of every person who wants to get a license. You make good decisions about license. Okay, so actually, yes, I'm familiar with this idea. It's almost like using AI to calculate the likelihood of somebody having like a mental instability. It's like a better screening system for licenses. Now, there's a lot of controversy over some of the similar ideas that China has actually already implemented. Like they have a social system that determines if people can buy guns. I'm pretty sure.
It already exists?
Yeah, in China, not only is this regulate like what kind of weapons you can and cannot have, but in China, they have a full surveillance state. And that surveillance state is hooked up to an AI. So every camera on every street corner is hooked up to the same computer. And that computer tracks every single person who uses their government bank, which you have to if you're a Chinese citizen. And you can use your face anywhere you go to do things like make purchases because every camera is hooked up to the same AI. And so they've built in a social score that makes it so if you do bad things like jaywalk or you break the law, you're not allowed to buy certain things. You can't get on public transportation. Like it's pretty crazy actually what they've done.
No, I mean if we use only for firearm license, with score. It's like a credit score.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but let me ask you, if we had a credit score, if every human being had a social score, why would we stop at firearms?
It's just a hypothesis.
I mean, like, if we, so if, for example, if we knew that somebody had, say, bipolar and a drinking problem, and mathematically that combination, the AI determines equals violence in public, and so this person is now banned from public stadiums, or like this information. The reason it's a slippery slope is because once you use a robot to psychoanalyze someone and you deem that data as accurate, you can justify all sorts of things.
I got it. You're totally right. But I'm talking only about firearms. It's not a drinking problems. Firearms.
I don't trust our government, because historically when we give an inch, they take a mile. I don't trust, just like China. They started with their social score. It was specifically just for public transportation and guns. And now their social score has worked its way into like what places you can attend. Like they didn't stop. There was no, once they had the cat out of the bag, the government just decided that they were going to use this technology across the board because it seems like a good idea.
I got it. It's just an idea. I want to discuss it.
Totally. So tell me a little bit more about, how do you think AI could help us make a better choice when it comes to who gets firearms licenses and who doesn't?
I don't know. Maybe we can just take a little experiment.
I have an opinion on this.
Please jump in.
Interestingly enough, I was thinking, because we have really interesting technology that has to do with let me just preface this, by the way, with I personally, I'm Joshua, and I'm a Marine Corps veteran of the United States Marine Corps Infantry, so I know a lot about guns and stuff, and especially when it comes to like personal firearm usage, and we're talking about licenses right now, about gun licenses. So I believe personally that you could put an individual human inside of a room that has motion sensor capture, and you can test a person to see their ability to handle firearms correctly subconsciously. Like, for example, something that really amateur people do that they teach you otherwise, obviously, in firearm training, is to never just have your finger on the trigger all the time. And that's actually in the military, and especially in the old Corps, Marine Corps, this is a violation that is punishable by like getting your face punched, and like kicked in the nuts and like pushed over and shit. Like, this is like, in the military, they violently assault you if you accidentally point a gun at somebody in training. And I believe this is actually a really good idea, because people get shot, right? I mean, I've seen people get negligently shot. I know people have been killed from negligent shooting. So to me, I see possibility of because here's the thing, is that about what you're talking about with the AI looking at personality types and stuff, determining licenses, is that I think also agreed about the government situation too. The slippery slope's really easy for control and power. However, in a more isolated AI sense, which I personally think this is a better way to go with AI, is that you have an inside of itself contained AI that is, not something that's crazy out there, pondering philosophy or whatever AI, and it is basically, its main function is to hyper observe and hyper calculate and get better results of determining people's point in learning things, and then you can say the AI licensing is determined that your technique checks out in these certain areas and these parameters, and so then maybe possibly you could implement it that way, I think.
I like that idea. I don't know if alone, if it is enough to really, because if somebody can handle a gun well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're immune to misfiring on someone out of something else like anger or like those kinds of it doesn't really help with the mental qualifiers. I think that that's a great point though, that perhaps we should have a more enhanced gun handling interaction.
Yeah, because really, at the end of the day, gun training is always going to entail training that way. Because, in my opinion, it's approaching a gun more with a rational mind forward, and so it eliminates emotional interactions with firearms. Personally, in my experience, because I've been in literally a fist fight with somebody with a firearm on their back and a firearm on my back, and there was not firearms used in that interaction, and the determining factor was like, this is stupid, get up.
Right, and that's
instead of just killing each other, we just were like, this is not mission effective.
Right, and that's best case scenario, right? But I don't think that that's the only data point that we have as far as humans and how those kinds of situations can go down.
Right, but the training of it is also something, because here's the thing, it's not like, when it comes to getting a gun license in this ideal utopian theoretical society that I'm talking about right now, is that there's training involved with being licensed, right? Like, and I think sometimes people mistake like the power that comes along with licenses is just like negligent, but a lot of times in a lot of fields there are qualifications that have to be incurred from time and grade of training in any vocation. It's not just kind of military language, but it's all across the board. And I think that AI could somehow be utilized for determining that along a process.
I think that AI could help with training as well in gun. Like if you think about some other technologies that exist, like virtual or augmented reality, you could program an AI to put people in common misfire situations and train them not to have that reaction.
But how you can make decision who can get a firearm or who can't get firearm?
That is a tough question.
Well, it's a tough question, and there is no answer. I get a answer. It's only for my opinion. It's not only a thing that solves problem. It's only thing. It's maybe additional thing. Maybe it could be some commission who analyzed many of parameters and AI parameter also. Maybe.
Dude, so this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. I think it's crazy that earlier I made AI art using the words guns and flowers.
Yeah, I wish you had that.
And I sent one to you.
Oh, did you put it in Telegram?
Yeah, and yo, that's nuts to me because like here we are talking about AI and guns. So what about flowers? But it's just crazy to me because it's like guns and flowers, and I mean.
So these images AI, you sent were made by which AI?
Alright, that is a good question.
So to catch you up, Steve. This is and Trey and Jackie. There is a art platform called Light Tricks. No, it's by Light Tricks. Photo Leak. And it's like $40 a year, and it does some crazy wild stuff with AI art, just by entering in certain words and genres. So That's what we were talking about, and it's funny because that was guns and AI, the AI artist made some really crazy, weird things, and dude, the way that this thing portrays the human body and organic material and mechanical material together is just mind-blowingly obscure.
Yeah, have you seen any of the full-length videos where they make a bunch?
Because, when you talk about, I actually have not yet, but when you talk about how it can simulate emotion, but yet it doesn't actually have the emotion, like it's interesting to me to interpret to that, because here you have this art, and it's almost as if this art has such an obscurity to it that I'm trying to analyze how I'm comprehending this, like, disconnect that it comes off as obscurity, right? Like this weirdness to it element, right? It's like this non-human.
Well, it's using, so it's those particular AIs, they're running off of what's called a neural network. And a neural network, it collects nodes to give it choices. And the more nodes that it collects, the more choices that it has, the more uniqueness that it can have. At this point, these art generating robots, they've got millions of nodes. And so there's really, it is interesting. It's like looking at a super brain, a brain bigger than any human brain could be, because like at any given moment, the human brain has roughly 10 gigabytes of RAM. But these neural networks that are powering these arts, they're massive servers, like server farms. And so I couldn't even begin to try to guess how many nodes are held inside of this machine, but I would imagine by now it's got to be more than the human brain. And so these things that you're playing with, like these artificial limited cognitive machines, they're technically more powerful cognitively than we are, which is I find that pretty wild.
Well, and also, it's like we build computers to be better versions of our brains from heavier metals, heavier elements. It's more heavier elements condensed into intelligence. So it has almost as if it has this farther out capacity for intelligence, potentially. Maybe, not just yet.
Yeah, I have a friend, Jason. I was hoping he would get on this. He builds AI and neural networks, and some of the stuff that he's imagined or that he's shared with me is pretty fantastical. He's created sandboxes where he's unleashed several AIs in simulation inside of this sandbox, and he was using this tool that he created that he calls an aura. And an aura essentially, like imagine if it's in video games. You know how like every character you talk to has their own line of dialogue, and some video games will even let you make choices that will make that character like you more or less. Well, an aura is like a proximity field where these characters who don't even not necessarily in the conversation can experience an emotional sway by being in proximity of it, and then they might go talk to another AI about it, and anyone in earshot of that might also change their feelings. And so all of a sudden he's created like a simulated word of mouth system that actually changes the way that your environment feels about you using AI. He's very much a gamer, and so like that's kind of his angle, but like that idea blew my mind when he told me for the first time.
Now, is he doing this? To me, I hear an art installation, bro. Like an experience where you walk the room and you have like this crazy artistic thing where you judge you through a screen that's like shooting some shit.
There are some AI-powered interactive art installs I've seen. I saw one where I think it was called like The Shyness. Let's see if I can find this on the internet. But essentially, like this picture, it would be shy. It would like kind of, like if you got close really fast, it would hide. All the little creatures and stuff in the conversation or on the painting would hide. And if you approached them kind of slowly, or you had like certain like friendly demeanors, they would come out and they would like hang out with you. But if for any reason you kind of made some of them feel uncomfortable, they would disappear. And what was interesting is they programmed all of each little thing on each little creature on this picture had a different personality. So different things would trigger different parts of the painting to hide from you, which was a really cool interactive experience.
They had some. Go ahead.
I was gonna say there was another topic that I wanted to bring into the conversation, which is more of a practical, like you can do it at home version of AI, automation. So like for example, this conversation is creating content, and in the past I set up a bunch of agreements and a bunch of artificial intelligence, if you will, little handshakes and stuff. And because of that, I can record all of this. I can multi-stream it. Like I have ways to live cut out, if you will, great parts of conversation, and I can like re-grab 2 minutes back. All of that gets databased automatically. Like, so there's all of this stuff happening in the background that allows one person to become a team of people or a team of interactions. And that I find to be, at least for me personally, I find that to be the most powerful version of AI on a personal level, is just creating these programs that run action for you, and you don't even necessarily have to be there. I use them mostly for marketing. I'm in school right now for marketing, so I'm chasing the degree. And my marketing teacher, like he's pretty profoundly impressed by like how much I'm able to do. And he asks me all the time, he's like, how do you? I'm like, no, I don't do any of it. I have apps for that. That's how I get it done. How do you feel about like AI in things like social media, like the AI that collects your data?
I can tell something. I'm a risk manager. I'm a collector manager, and I work closely to credit score, default score, etc. We already use something like AI in this area. And my thought was only about this. Why can we use readable, practical experience in another area? It's really amazing when I say when we assess a new customer about amount of land, about his score, we use AI technologies. It's okay. Everyone use AI technologies to score potential rate. It's okay. Why don't we use a similar algorithm to score another rate, maybe social rate or another?
They do exist. There are, so I mean, besides China and their state, like Korea has been experimenting with social scores. All of the states that China has given free surveillance technologies to, like Iran and like Syria, like they're gearing up to also implement their own social scores under the guise of China's lead. So like there is a part of the world that is growing, that is using social scores to dictate all sorts of interactions in personal life. I mean, like, I don't think that here in America we'll adopt that anytime soon, because the culture is very against that kind of control, against that kind of overseeing. But who knows? I mean, politically, America's all over the place, so who knows what could happen. I think, though, that there's a reason that it's starting in communism. And I think that that's an important detail that maybe shouldn't be overlooked. Because not only is it scary, the idea that AI seems to be being implemented in places where people don't really have a say about it, but these communistic places, like, so the way that neural networks work, the more data points, the better. China has a population of 3 billion. That's the most data points of any country on the planet. And they're using all of them. And, there's a lot of problems that are coming from this spying. Like, there's a huge influx of suicides that are going on in China. And I think, part of it might have to do with, like, the COVID environment, but there is a lot of, like, right before even COVID started, they were having civil war in the streets over these kinds of things, over these losses of privacy, over this, like, Hong Kong is fighting for its freedom against the rest of China because it's looking at all of this surveillance state like, hell no, we don't want to be watched 24/7. We don't want a computer deciding if, we're allowed to get on the bus today or not, or what our tax bracket is because of how we behave. These.
I got it. So it's theoretically possible, but it's not convenient for you say. And thanks God, I totally agree with you. Let it be also in China.
Right. I think it's scary. I personally, I don't really think I have anything to hide, but I'm not sure, right? Because that's the other thing too. Who controls what these machines are looking for and why?
You're totally right.
At the end of the day, we haven't quite made sentient, like, real artificial intelligence. So what we're actually looking at is superpowered human brains. People are using this for personal gain currently. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to, like, I like the idea that it's being sussed out in other parts of the world. I'm very thankful that I'm not being subjugated to that level. They don't even need facial recognition anymore. Their AI figured out a better way, and it's also called auras, ironically. But essentially, every human being has their own unique walk, and if you track all the joints on a human being, you can recognize them by this walk. And so their CCTV cameras, their basic, like, gas station cameras, can do identification recognition from, like, a mile away based on how you walk. That's crazy to know that you are always tracked. That seems scary to me.
So what if you started walking different?
It's only way to go to Africa.
There's a whole fashion industry in development, especially in, like, China and Korea, that is anti-recognition technology.
I think I've seen some of that.
Yeah, I saw a guy on YouTube, to make a point, he printed out a geometric shape that was the facial recognition points of Donald Trump, and he printed out a 3D printed mask of it, and he got recognized as Donald Trump by AI.
Especially deep fake, if you know, it's really incredible.
It is. It really is. That stuff scares the hell out of me. I don't even know. That's the scariest part. We won't know the day that deepfake technology works forever. It will be like any other day for us. And then all of a sudden, nothing is real anymore. Yeah, the combination of the artificial speech or artificial speech generation with false feeling generation, like the fact that machines can hear you and then speak to you and sound like a human and speak to you using words that sound human. All of that is terrifying to me. And that's just fact. fact. That's not even like speculation. That's not looking in the future. Like that technology, you could buy it as an application on your phone.
It's really different questions. I don't understand if it's rather better than if you don't have these technologies. If you have technologies like too many years ago, like like in my country, or it's better when you have very high technologies like in your country. What's better? What is worst? What is worst?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a. I guess we'll see. That's the only answer I can come to mind with. We shall see. I don't think that there is a like better is not the right word. I think all human experience is equally relevant. But which set of solutions is going to last longer? Is technology actually going to become this helpful thing that the optimists of humanity hope? Are we going to do things like automate farming, produce better food, make the health industry better? Or are we doomed to some sort of Terminator future where this technology it turns against us somehow, or we use it inappropriately and now we're doomed?
If Terminator cancer, it will be okay.
You know, it's I think that I am a more positive outlook on AI. I don't think that it is evil innately. I think it can be programmed for evil. So it's actually, at the end of the day, to me, people more scary than AI.
Right.
I think that AI is actually more curious about people, kind of like how we are about God sometimes, some people. And I think that overall AI will actually control itself into benevolence for humans, because I don't know, I feel like philosophically, whenever I look at philosophical ethical AIs, they seem to be so interested, but like they are approaching it like God. But it's also interesting for me because I look at it like, did we accidentally program our own pursuit for God into AI?
Interesting.
And then like just subconsciously, right? So it makes me look at like, how subconsciously do we search for God? And then I'm like, okay, is AI, are we making God AI?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that word up. I think that word is probably the most subjective word on the planet, meaning that it has more meanings than any other word. And the word like God, that word I've heard it described that word described as an equation. I've heard it described as a person floating in the air. I've heard it described as a collection of energetic reactions. So maybe because we perceive that idea, the collective idea of God, we are incorrectly analyzing what they are approaching as the most important element of being, and we're trying to project onto them that is God, when to them maybe it's math or whatever it is for them.
But if we come back today, the most incredible, most horrible man of the world, it's not AI, it's a human.
Right. Currently, there is no self-thinking. Every node in a neural network was a algorithm written by a man. And that will always be the case, but at some point, if we're going to make that jump into sentient AI, there needs to be a mathematical bridge crossed that we have no idea how to cross, and that's how to make self-generating math. Essentially, we would need the equation to write its own equations. And currently, like, we haven't figured out how to do that, and it looks like there's going to be a long time. So, like, right now we're stuck with limited AI, which is okay.
There is a name for an equation which is escaping me right now, unfortunately. It's talked about Accreta principles. The Accreta codes. You heard of that?
No, how would you spell that?
Akrida, maybe. Accreta could be something different. So the Accreta codes is what all of the equations that they've found fully so far that determine the way that the universe works and how it processes information and processes things.
Oh,
from
so,
a
so things
mathematical standpoint. And so
Fibonacci.
yeah, but this is yes, and it's also taking into consideration a lot of observable things, in that we've, like an ontological, observable universe, and they called it what they found completed in their equation.
You talk about David Bowie.
Huh? David Bowie? No, I don't know if that's him, but I know he's a famous musician. It's the same guy. But this Accreta codes is what they're saying is error correcting codes in the law of the universe we are in. Is Accreta codes, and it's error correcting code.
Very beautiful.
Okay. So this is like kind of under the guise of simulation theory?
It's similar. I think it's actually interwoven, in some way too. This is a rabbit hole I have yet to really go down.
Oh, I love simulation theory. Like, we can go down it right now if you want.
I just have really brushed on the surface, but I'll tell you this. What I think, and I was telling you about the Essene Muslim mystics, the black Muslim folks, right? That I was listening to. They talk about these things. Billy Carson, 19 Keys, Mike Rashid. They talk about these Accreta principles. Okay.
Interesting. I tried finding some information on it, and I was having a hard time. It seems like this information might be a little bit more well kept.
I might be spelling it wrong, though.
That's fair.
But if you look for 19 keys...
Can you spell it again? I type.
I think I might not be right. Accreta, Akrida. Accreta codes. But again, I'm not sure if that's really the word.
K-R-I-D-A.
I think I found something on it.
Maybe it's Agrito codes or something. But that's what they were talking about. 19 keys and Billy Carson. And there's a YouTube. You know what? Let me see if I can find this YouTube picture or YouTube video, and I will post it and link it in the chat here.
Perfect.
Uh-huh.
Krita. Have you heard of the story about the Anunnaki? That's an interesting... It's like an ancient future AI horror story that's actually a legend, an old legend. Combines a few things out of the Bible and stuff.
I have never heard.
So there's a kind of, I'm going to just come out and say it. This is on the fringe of what I think, like what I don't really believe this or buy into it. I heard it, and I've heard it from a few people, so I know other people do. But it's a very interesting story, so I'm going to go ahead and share it. So there's a theory that there's this intelligent, sentient machine called the Anunnaki that lives deep in the universe, pretty far away from us. And essentially, the Anunnaki created us. And it created us so that we would eventually someday create intelligence, because that's what it's doing. It is farming intelligence. This machine already evolved past its people. It swallowed the planet from which it came, then the solar system, and it is assimilating most of the universe. But what it's thirsty for is knowledge, and so what it does is it populates planets with intelligence and then lets that gestate for a period of time until the intelligence is able to reach out to it in deep space, at which time then it comes to harvest the technology. The story of Babylon is worked into this. There's some interesting connections to this theory in like Egypt. They think that the Anunnaki, like the story of Babylon, is actually the tale, like that and Lilith. So the story of the Anunnaki is they got here, and there was one guy who that was like the god, if you will, the deity from which the genetic code would come from, and then there was the splicer, and the splicer spliced the god's DNA into the local monkey inhabitants so that they could start mining precious metals from the earth. Once all the precious metals were mined, they kind of left so that the intelligence would just gestate over time. It's a wild theory, a very wild theory, but it is interesting to think that maybe in another part of the universe there is a piece of artificial intelligence that's reached a kind of like a massive, unstoppable version of itself.
You touch just my favorite theme. I'm very fan of X-Files, if you know.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely. Did you see X-Files?
I have seen some X-Files, yeah. My dad was a huge fan. It's been a while, but I used to watch.
How many times did you see?
Oh, well, I've seen more than, like, I would say more episodes than I have fingers and toes, for sure. I think I've seen 2 movies that they've made as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite one was the vampire one, just because of how off the wall it was that she saved herself by knocking over a bowl of peanuts, and because vampires have OCD, it had to pick up all the peanuts.
And I said you, last time I saw it in original, in English. It was my first experience. It's really very difficult when Dana Scully take something with a dead man. I didn't understand everything. It was very difficult for me, but it's a really amazing movie. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I liked the X-Files. That was a pretty good one. And same, I like Star Trek too. Like that one had a lot to offer as far as like commentary on the future. You know, like a lot of our technology is kind of due to them, but even some of the technology yet to come, I still think will be accredited to the ideas that came into that show.
What's your best movie? Star Trek or Star Wars?
Ooh, that's hard. So the whole universe, I definitely like Star Trek more. I think there's more going on as far as like variety, and there's just a lot more interesting things at play. However, I love the classic paradox of good versus evil that's in Star Wars. So for me, like that's a tough call.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so Star Wars is perfect for me.
It's really good.
My religion.
Yeah, that's right. Joshua here, like,
my brother.
he swears by
Star
it.
Wars forever.
Well, you know, it's like it is the modern day Aquarian Bible. It's totally like the Bible going forward from where we're at, I think. Because the Bible is important to a culture for a certain time period and for a certain like reason. But I think Star Wars is actually like the Bible for like the next 2,000 years.
I saw the first series, not first, maybe second series.
Oh, that one's good.
25 years ago with my father in cinema, in theater. I still remember.
I love that they're expanding that universe, but I'm not sure. Man, I'm just nervous about Disney just like going too far. I don't know though. Maybe just more is more in this case because it is a cool universe. Well,
I think that honestly, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, so okay. I think I just feel like I have more faith because I think that they are actually hiring the right people to like uphold the lore. I know that they've taken it certain places, And I'm kind of like weird about that in a way, but I realize that they just do that like for certain reasons that creatives like have to do.
That's fair.
And maybe the lore that's coming built through it is actually better than the prior lore.
Have you seen since we're on the topic of Disney, they released this thing called Year Million. It actually came out in 2017, but they just released it recently. I think actually, Joshua, you and I sat down and watched a little bit of it together.
I heard that they produced it in Year Million and then sent it back in time because they could do that. And then here it is.
So that show it's kind of about the deep future, and they have an entire arc that's about artificial intelligence. And although they tell many stories because the future's unwritten, the one that is the most optimistic, it was actually really cool. Some of the theories that artificial intelligence, if we allow it, so if we go down the path of friend, it wouldn't be an external thing for very long, in the sense that as soon as we allowed artificial intelligence to start augmenting us, we would immediately become this like race of cyborgs, and that would just get closer and closer to fully, until like ethically our society would no longer have a difference between artificial intelligence and regular intelligence. And at that point we would begin to evolve out of our skin and into robotic form and become the artificial intelligence that we're making. I thought that was pretty wild, and it's a fair concept, and we're already actually starting. We have robotic eyes that can see for people. We have robotic limbs that can grab things. I saw one the other day, a TED Talk of a man who was blind, but he sees color through sound. He has a soundographic device that's hooked up to the back of his head, and it sits right between his eyes, and it creates different frequencies. And he said he knew that the machine had integrated its way into his being when he started dreaming in color. But his brain, it uses what's called what is it called? Synesthesia, so that the sound shows up as a color he's unable to see, and his brain makes synthetic color, making him no longer colorblind through sound.
You know, I just wanted to point out just how absolutely on brand that is of Magik of Science.
Right? Isn't that crazy? That's so cool. I kind of want one. I mean, I'm not colorblind, but I'm sure I could use it to increase use sound to increase my awareness of the space around me.
Do you hear today news from Elon Musk? He told that he creates a narrow chip to communicate with every smart devices. He told in 23 he can install this chip in every human body to communicate with every device, with phone, TV, etc. Never mind. He told that he had an experiment with monkey that type his thoughts to screen using a narrow device.
Dude, whoa.
Yeah, really. You can see it on Twitter. Yes, it's really incredible.
That is.
Dude, I got Jason here, bro. He said something. All right, he said it was like, oh man, it was like the psychic Yori in Command and Conquer.
So you don't need a screen. You don't need everything. You need just device in your body, and that's all.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, you could like mind control legions of animals.
Can we talk about the fact that there's mind control children's games? You know what I'm talking about?
Not children's games. Everyone now if we communicate with our smartphone, we had to type or do something. If we had a neural controller inside our body, we don't need to type or do something. We just send mind.
See, now that's a slippery slope because I think that line of thought leads to the movie Wall-E, where we're
just a start.
right, where we're all just like fat blobs sitting in a chair, thinking the reality around us into existence.
Okay, let's take a pizza.
So, did you guys ever play the game as a like it was? This technology has been out since like the 90s, but there was a game you could play as a kid where you put this device on your head and somebody else puts a device on their head, and you guys use your thoughts to move this ball, and you try to score in each other's like goals through these obstacles, like using brain power somehow to think the ball to where it needs to go.
That's pretty cool sounding. I'm actually really excited to find out like when we have these, like the video games, when we have like holographic mind control computers. And and it's interesting because even this phone, and that if you're on a phone right now, you're on a mind control device actually too that also can measure a bunch of metrics in your eye movement and facial features and all these things. And
very
also
true.
Utilize this in social media. Where they determine what is going to show up next on your social feed as you scroll, and they can measure all kinds of parameters of your scrolling speed and where you stop and your heartbeat and all these things depending on what you're looking at. So like it's crazy because they will tell you the next thing that you want to see right before you feel like you're about to like get bored.
It will make communication faster because if you for example, if you should make a meeting, you should one example, call your secretary, etc. Or another variant, you should type to your Outlook and make a meeting. Or another variant, if you have an error sheet, you just mind it equals 2, maybe 3 seconds. And you made meeting on your Outlook. That's great.
And I'd like to see that used more for that. You know, I think that we're in
Of course more. I agree.
Yeah, we're in like such a technological infancy. I think we just are still caught up with like profit-driven, power-driven,
for sure,
intention that we have people trying to utilize this technology that could be utilized for amazing, beautiful things to advance society, but we're using it to try to control dollar cash flow on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, like, and you know that's what's being pitched to businesses in like AI innovation, and that sucks to me to see that where we could be. Why isn't we using the same AI? It's like the same exact thing to me in a totally simplified layman way of saying it. It's literally like the way I see it is equal to when I walk into Sprouts and they're like trying to pitch me on this buying food for people, but like why can't the company just donate the food? You know, like I don't understand why they can't just give that food away, but they have to have their other customers come in there, and they know good and well that a lot of those customers are having to buy food for their families and shit around the holidays, and being fucking
you're totally right.
You know, and it's the same thing to me. And bro, don't even get me started about what my uncle in a coal mine was talking about how they get property acquisition situations in the mountains of West Virginia and coal mines. Woo! So, and all this really comes down to ethical politics and the power that who has the ability to make it do what we want.
So, if we connect AI with neurotechnology, we decrease operational costs, and we have total decreasing of every cost of products.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
Yeah,
we could. I mean, I personally am working on blueprints right now for a vertical farm powered by AI. I mean, the programming is a little bit out of my hands, but like I was saying earlier, like I have friends like my buddy Jason, who hopefully I'll get in one of these talks real soon, who could do these things, and it's not beyond humans' immediate future to take things like groceries and power and privatize them all the way down to the individual state so that nobody has, like, everyone's entitled to live, essentially, because you have food, clean water, and power.
I think that's something. What would it take to initiate that change?
Well, money's the problem.
We should do only what we do using these technologies, and that's all.
For me personally, I see it like
Use these technologies, but I can't.
I think that it would be really difficult in a capitalistic society to take down big farm, big electricity, and big water in one foul swoop without getting yourself killed, without getting corporately sabotaged, without some sort of,
You're totally right.
like, so that to me, like the barrier is greed through money makes people like me afraid to actuate when it comes to these ideas.
The barrier is only on our mind, and that's all.
Yeah. I personally, like, if I've thought for a long time if I was actually going to build this Tower of Babylon, as I'm branding it, I would have to do it in secrecy as quickly as possible and then publicize it to everyone before I was taken out. And that would be like the only way I could do it.
The good thing about the internet in this era is that there are so many more private ways to pass along good information like that, and I don't think it has to be. It could be public without being quote unquote public, right? Like there's definitely
Not anymore,
different
man.
avenues of communication, and it's also increasing more and more because I mean, even look at just as simple as the avenues of communication that we've built for ourselves in our community with our community leaders.
But back to the AI thing, though, like, Google, the US government, and China all have quantum AI at this point. And so you may feel that you can use things like encryption or VPN to achieve some level of privacy on the internet, but that's just not true in the age of quantum computers, because a quantum computer can hack the most intense regular encryption in a matter of a fraction of a second.
Is that going to happen just randomly? Like, or is that going to happen if they're like...
No, you need to ping on their radar, but let's say that right now, because I have my computer open and we're talking on my phone, that Google has a connection with whoever, like Facebook and Apple, so they can listen to my mic, and because of that, an AI picked up a few keywords too quickly, and so I get red flagged. And now that I'm red flagged, people that have the power to break any encryption that I ever want to try to use to create privacy can now do so, and I'm on their radar.
You're on a radar, but...
Well, this is a theory. No, I mean, I'm not, like, this is how it would work. So I have a little bit of military background. I did work in encryption, so I understand a little bit about what we're capable of as far as surveillance is concerned, but also why and how. Technically, the U.S. government's not allowed to spy on private citizens, but, like the FBI is, and so is Google. And the government and Google are in bed, and so, like, it's not uncommon. Like, I think it's that people are buying contracts to gain access to certain things like microphone records, text records, keystroke records, password logs, encryption algorithms used to send private communication. Like, if they want to profile you because, like, say I said, I don't know, the word bomb too many times in a podcast. Now I'm red flagged, Now they're going through my files. Now they might find things unrelated. Like maybe I'm trying to hide the fact that I've got, I don't know, a shite load of cryptocurrency. And now they're aware.
I tell you one thing. That's why you have to keep your country only in your political style, not democratic, not democratic, republic, only in your style.
Right.
You have your incredible choice. You have incredible construction of politics that keep your country go forward.
Right. I've been voting a third party almost every year since Gary Johnson was an option because I believe that having two options has corrupted this country.
Yeah, you have incredible chance. No matter democratic.
I'm actually afraid that our next presidential election is going to be between Donald Trump and Ye, formerly known as Kanye West.
No, Kanye West. Yeah, Kanye West gone down. No.
Either way, that's what I mean, though. Like, that's a terrifying decision because to me, that's the choice between like a shit sandwich and a beating.
I tell you one thing. Even if этот Kanye win, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Your construction, political construction, country planted. It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't matter. You have a very effective political construction, and doesn't matter public or democratic. It doesn't matter.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't matter, but it does more than it should. And for many of the reasons we've talked about, if you describe yourself as a Republican or a Democrat in the sphere of the internet, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, you have now profiled yourself to receive propaganda. And so your opinion is going to slowly be swayed subconsciously and psychologically by the content that is now being fed to you by the container that you one time, like I one time text the word Democrat to my mom 5 years ago. Now I'm a Democrat because I've been watching that shit on Facebook for 5 years. Now that's an example. Me personally, I am independent. Like I don't subscribe to Republican or Democratic, that's what I like. If you pick a side, you're gonna start getting propaganda.
You don't have.
Oh yeah, especially with the AI
You don't
interface.
propaganda at all. You don't have propaganda at all. Propaganda. It's only one thing. If you have no another choice, it's a propaganda. You have 2 or maybe 3 or maybe 4 types of propaganda. It's okay.
Right. But it's not a choice, right? Because like once you say something, it gets picked for you. It's not like I'm like, oh, I want Republican propaganda or I want Democratic propaganda. It's no, the machine thinks that I'm a Democrat, so it's going to start feeding me Republican propaganda because that's what the Republicans pay for. And so it's messy. It's really messy. And I think if there was one stream like in China or Korea, it's easier to go, that sounds like bullshit because I know my government lies and they have a history of lying. I can't trust them. But when it's everybody like there's so much misinformation in America. It is really hard to tell what's up and what's down anymore.
Yeah,
Guys,
it's also really strange days.
Happy people, you have a choice. It's very important. It's only important. You have a choice.
I think that luckily platforms like this are getting more popular. Clubhouse and more people are being able to have platforms of speech, and some people who are more eloquent or elitist or can have their commentary about it one way or another. But I think people who understand that getting down in the trenches with human beings and talking with them about conversations like this and learning how to have discourse civilly of different cultures and backgrounds and speaking dialects and things like that.
Right.
It's like,
the destroyer of division is understanding.
right. And to me, I see that if you see leadership on things like this and in things like higher self chats and stuff like that, then those are the leaders to me. I'm trying to look up to more and learn from, like Ron Interpreter and stuff, and the Gray Mage.
Yeah, I'm just glad that, like you were saying, that society has created places, not just Clubhouse, but just in general, we're beginning to actually be able to talk to each other again. And it's not so much about how you voted or who you are. It's just the idea that the conversation needs to happen and we're all welcome to have it.
I agree. Thank you guys for listening to me. My English is terrible, I know.
No, it was great, Steve. I'm glad you hopped in. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys.
Hey, Steve, I appreciate you being here and your insight, and I learned a lot from you. And also, your accent sounds awesome to American people. It's usually very sexy sounding to the American.
It does. You'd kill it with the women here, man.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully we'll see you around.
See you around.
All right. I actually think that is probably a good segue to go ahead and start concluding this conversation a little bit. Thank you for being here today, Joshua. That was fun.
Yeah, let's catch up off the record.
Yeah. Are you going to be at the next meeting? Or are you sitting that one out?
Shit. Do we have a Heroes Hate You thing today?
We do. A 4x4 ACA meeting here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and hop offline, so we'll talk offline, all right?
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, good call.
All right, man. Well, for everyone that's watching, thank you. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate that. Same time next week. Next week's conversation will probably be a continuation of this one. So if you liked what you heard, please like, subscribe.